Hi guys, Bert here. So welcome back, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. So I had a client who came to me with a layout of a property that she was actually looking to buy. And after looking at the layout, I found that it actually it didn't look right. So I thought that hey, why not I do this video, to show mistakes that buyers tend to actually overlook when they are actually looking to buy their next property, and probably hope that this would help you in your property journey when you're buying your next home. So without further ado, let's get into the layouts. So most buyers assume that if two condos are the same size, they should feel about the same to live in, right? But take a look at these two layouts. Both are 4-bedroom units. Both are 1292 square feet. But yet, one of them feels significantly more spacious than the other. And the reason comes down to something that most buyers actually don't notice: how efficiently the space within the unit is actually being used. So in this video, I want to walk through 5 condo layout mistakes that buyers often overlook when evaluating a floor plan. And later on, I'll also explain why newer layouts are becoming more efficient because of something called GFA harmonization. So let's start with the first layout issue many buyers don't immediately notice. That is the shape of the living room. So if you notice and take a look at these two layouts, at first glance, both look fairly similar. But if you look closely at the living area, something feels very different. In the first layout, we have the living dining arranged in a long strip, which we call a portrait layout. So everything ends up being placed almost in a straight line with the sofa and the dining table alongside each other. And now we compare that with the second layout. Here, the living room spreads out much more naturally across the frontage of the unit. And the reason becomes clear when we look at the measurements. In the first layout, the living room frontage is about 3.2 meters. But in the second layout, the frontage is at 5.5. So even though both units are exactly the same size on paper, 1292 square feet, the wider frontage makes the living space feel much more comfortable and open. And layouts with wider living room frontages also tend to appeal more to family buyers because the space works better for gatherings and entertaining. So even here, the difference isn't the unit size, it's how efficiently the space is planned. So the second thing I always look at when evaluating a floor plan is the bedroom size and usability. Here we have 2 4-bedroom layouts, and the first unit is actually 1507 square feet. Okay, while the second one is 1550 square feet. Size-wise, very much similar. But if we zoom into bedroom 3 and bedroom 4, right, you can actually see that both bedrooms can only accommodate a single bed. And the bed ends up being pushed against the window wall, leaving space for only one side table. And this is important when we think about the target buyer profile. Many buyers upgrading into condos are actually HDB upgraders. And in a typical HDB flat, the common bedrooms is about 9 square meters. So buyers who are used to HDB bedroom sizes may find some condo bedrooms noticeably smaller. And now we compare that to the second bedroom layout, and we can actually see that these bedrooms can all fit a queen size bed very comfortably, with space on both sides for bedside tables. And if you were to place a single bed instead, you can actually even fit a study desk, something which is very important if you have a child. And again, the difference here isn't really about the unit size. Again, it's about how efficiently the bedroom space is being planned. The third layout issue buyers sometimes overlook is the corridor space. Again, I'm comparing between the 2 4-bedroom layouts, and the first unit is 1345 square feet, while the second is actually smaller at 1292 square feet. Okay? But if you look at the first layout, you will notice this bowling alley over here, which is a very long corridor walking in leading to your living room. And a lot of these corridors are very narrow, looking at about probably 1.2 meters wide. So it's actually not very usable. You can't really place furniture there. So part of the square footage you are paying for ends up being just used as a passageway. And if you compare that to the second layout, we have a more compact entry, shorter walkway, right, which is actually again then becomes more efficient in terms of space use. If we look at the bedrooms and compare, there's a subtle improvement where the master bedroom is actually flush neatly compared to here, right? And this actually allows the fourth bedroom to cascade in line with all the other bedrooms, causing the shorter corridor walkway as compared to a longer one over here. Which means the area that would otherwise be wasted on corridors can instead then be allocated back into more usable living space. So even though the first unit is technically larger, the second layout actually uses the space more efficiently. By the way, if you enjoy this kind of breakdown where we go through real floor plans and analyze how layouts actually work, you'll probably enjoy the other videos on the channel as well. So do consider liking the video and subscribing. I'll be sharing more insights on how to evaluate different projects and layouts. So another layout feature that can quietly take up a lot of space is the balcony or planter area. In the first layout, you will notice that planter boxes running along the edges of the whole unit. Planters were quite common in earlier developments, and they are usually less than 1 meter deep, originally intended for plants. So in reality, many owners end up decking them over to create mini balconies, which, if you look at me, I cannot even go and stand. So it makes it actually quite useless. Now, if we look at the second layout, we see the opposite situation. The balcony stretches across almost the entire frontage of the unit, covering all 3 bedrooms. On paper, unit size is listed at 1507 square feet. But when we look at how much of the space is taken out, we can actually see that it actually takes up nearly 1/3 of the whole space. So while the marketing size says 150 square feet, the actual interior living space may be closer, at about 1000 square feet. So larger balconies can make sense only if you have a really good view. But in a dense urban environment like Singapore, many balconies end up being used mainly for drying clothes. And the final layout issue I want to talk about is the study or flexi room. And developers sometimes can include these spaces so that the unit can be marketed as a 2-bedroom plus study. But sometimes the study is really just a corner beside the kitchen, as what we can see here in the layout. Essentially, once you put a desk and a chair there, suddenly, voila, it becomes a study room. Now compare that with the second layout. This is actually a more traditional 2-bed plus study, but there's also an interesting design choice over here. What I noticed, and probably you can see, is that the common bathroom is actually accessed through the study room, which means that in order for me to use the bathroom, or if your friend wants to come to your house and use the bathroom, I actually have to walk through the study space to get to the toilet. And one thing I don't really like about this kind of study layouts is that the wall between the room and the study cannot actually be hacked. So, why put the study there in the first place? So we've looked at narrow living rooms, tight bedrooms, long corridors, oversized balconies, and even study rooms. They are just really corners only. And if you think about it, all these examples point to the same underlying issue: how efficiently the space within a unit is actually used. And that is precisely one of the reasons why the government eventually introduced something called GFA harmonization. In the past, certain spaces such as planters, aircon ledges, and oversized balconies were treated differently in planning guides, which meant buyers sometimes paid for space that they weren't fully usable in everyday living. And to address this, the government introduced the GFA harmonization in 2022. The goal is to make floor area calculations more consistent and transparent. And from a policy perspective, this also helps to manage affordability. Because if layouts become more efficient, developers can actually reduce wasted space and make homes more affordable. So when evaluating a condo layout, it's not just about the total square footage. What really matters is how efficiently that space is designed, because sometimes the difference between two homes isn't just the size, it's how well the space is being planned. If you found this breakdown helpful, please feel free to like the video and subscribe. I'll also be sharing more insights on how to evaluate different projects and layouts. I help you plan your next move properly, because the right move isn't just about property, it's about planning. See you at the next one.